Watch out for the hole.
What hole? Watch out for the portable hole. Rock out to the portable hole. Watch out for the portable hole. Rock out to the portable hole.
Welcome to the Portable Hole Podcast. I'm Ryan George, and I'm here with my good friends Justin and Cynic. How you guys doing?
Pretty good. You know, I was doing better before you challenged my patriotism. I'm an American. I like baseball, and not all of us are like far left wing, like socialist commies. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Justin, can you just please say they're taking our jobs?
They're taking our jobs. They are. They are taking our jobs as podcasters.
If you are listening to this, Justin's wearing an American flag shirt, which it is funny how that has become like synonymous with being like hardcore on the right. It shouldn't, right? Like we're all patriots, whether you're on the right or left. But it almost feels weird wearing anything with an American flag on it. Right?
Patriotism, I feel, is the most meaningless word, right, that could possibly exist. Because to me, I believe Colin Kaepernick is a patriot, right? Because to me, he stands up for American ideals of, using your voice to speak up and wanting to, within your rights, change things that are wrong with the country. Like, to me, and there is a saying that patriotism, dissent is the greatest form of patriotism. So I believe he is a patriot, but people on the right think that he's a traitor. So it's meaningless. And, is their opinion more valid than mine? No, it's not as valid as mine, but they're still entitled to it. So
fair enough. So you went from railing against me being a socialist commie, as you said, to somehow maneuvering yourself to the left of me. So good job.
Okay.
So how are you doing, Cynic?
I'm great, man. Happy about the start of baseball season.
Yeah.
Can't get enough. Without a doubt, next to MMA, probably my favorite sport. Even run a fantasy baseball league because I'm a giant nerd.
Oh, wow.
And my team came back from a 20-point deficit today, so I can't complain.
Nice. So if for anyone listening, we're recording on opening day. So did you guys watch any baseball today?
Yeah, I caught a couple games.
Okay. How about you, Justin?
I was just checking in. The Mets were postponed, so I wasn't really watching, just checking the scores.
I think that's 2 or 3 years in a row now. That's like a tradition for you guys. Opening day is not opening day.
And it's too bad because the Mets are like the best team in baseball on opening day by like a long shot. They never lose on opening day. If every day was opening day, they would win. But unfortunately, there's only one opening day.
Yeah.
Funny enough, in the last 2 years, Adley Rutschman for the catcher for the Orioles, it was 9 for 9 on opening day. Like he was perfect up until his last at bat.
There you go.
Well, speaking of MMA, are there any good cards coming up? I know
there is the Atlantic City card, but that's not very big. But yeah, a week or so from now is UFC 300, which is just going to be a giant card.
Who's fighting on it?
Everybody and anybody at this point, other than Connor.
Who we will be talking about later.
Yeah, we absolutely will. He showed up. But off the top of my head, it's much like UFC 100 and 200. It's absolutely stacked. It should be something that we watch.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure. Is there a main event? Or I mean, there has to be, right?
Yeah. Who is it? I want to say it's Leon Edwards. Talk while I pull it up.
All right.
Yeah. Gaethje versus Holloway, Weili versus Weili Zhang versus Yan Jian, Alex Pereira versus Hill. Yeah, that's a dope card.
Yeah, pretty
Pereira
card,
versus
yeah.
Hill's
Oliveira's
the main
fighting. Surakian.
Oh yeah,
that's a legit card.
Oh yeah, something that definitely should.
Even the prelims, Holly
find a way
Holmes
to check it
fighting, versus Kayla Harrison. That's actually an interesting fight. When Aljo versus Kelvin Qatar is fighting on the prelims, on the preliminary card. That's good.
And how is Aldo still fighting?
Did I say Aldo?
No,
Isn't
no,
he-
No,
Aljo.
Aljo. Sorry,
Okay.
Aljo.
Sterling.
Aljamain
But
Sterling. Yeah.
but Aldo is fighting still, right?
Is he?
I feel like
I
he was
haven't seen
announced
him in
for
a
a
while,
card.
but yeah, he did fight within the last 2 years.
Okay, yeah. I feel like I saw something the other day with him fighting or announcement or something. But
He's not that well. The surprising, he's not an old guy.
Yeah, I
he's
guess
just
so.
been in it for
been
so.
doing
I
it
mean,
for
he's
so
old
long.
in MMA years,
Yeah,
obviously,
exactly.
but he's younger than us,
Yeah.
right? Doesn't that freak you out?
Well, part of the big thing with Aldo is that he hasn't been knocked out. Like, he's not suffering from Chuck Liddell
Yeah.
syndrome. He's
Yeah.
gotten battered in a couple fights.
Yeah.
He's going the distance in a couple fights, but he's not getting knocked out on the reg
No.
like
Yeah,
some of these
that's
other
true.
guys that are long in the tooth.
And
Like,
even
defensively, he's sound.
and at his age, like he's good enough that he's better than a gatekeeper.
Yeah.
And he still beats he's beaten good guys. So I guess he'll
Yeah,
he can stick around as long as he can
Yeah.
hang.
He should.
But if we're talking about longevity, on that card is Jim Miller.
Yeah,
and Jim Miller
that's
has
the
fought on
crazy
UFC
thing.
100, 200, and now it's going to be 300, which is pretty fucking amazing.
Yeah, that is crazy. Well, so we're gonna skip news for today because we actually have a
Well, the
packed
MMA is a
episode.
good segue.
Yeah, it is a good segue. Too bad we're not segueing right into that first review,
Yeah,
but
too bad.
we got a packed episode with a few things, some trailers and some reviews to go over. But before we get to that, are you guys watching? Justin, you watching anything? Have you had a chance to watch anything?
So I've been continuing with Shogun, and then the stuff for today.
Okay,
So,
cool. How are you liking Shogun
very much so.
so far? It's good. I really like it. I think I'm one episode behind, but I'm really it's still really good. How about you, Cindy?
Totally
What are you
good.
watching?
Well, as of last night, I got hooked on Homicide New York on Netflix.
Okay.
And I'll tell you, it's from Dick Wolf, the guy that does Law and Order. And it's about 5 or 6 hours of the best TV I've ever seen.
Really?
Yeah. True crime documentary. And they talk to the cops, the DAs, and the victims of these crimes. And they're all stuff that I'm sure you guys being from the area, you'll remember, like the quadruple shooting over top of Carnegie Deli.
That's awesome.
The 2 kids that killed someone in Central Park and stabbed them like 50 times. Fantastic.
What's
Like,
the show
ripping.
called?
Homicide New York.
Okay, yeah. I'll check.
And it was well worth watching. And it was funny enough because they kept showing this one detective in this one case. And I said, that really looks like my coworker. And turns out it was his brother. And I had 2 or 3 conversations with this individual. And so that was kind of a cool wraparound to the story.
Nice. So yeah, I'm kind of catching up on. Well, I spent the whole weekend watching the 3 Body Problem, but one thing I did watch was called Quiet on Set. I think it's a documentary series. I think it was on, let's say, Investigation Discovery, but we were watching it on HBO Max or Max, whatever it is now. But it's a documentary about focuses on what's his name, Dan Schneider, who was the kind of major producer behind a lot of, I guess, Nickelodeon's stuff in the early 2000s and all the way up until recently, if you look at his credits. But just kind of this chaotic and very toxic atmosphere that he that he helped to foster that allowed for some really horrible things to happen to some people. So it's a compelling documentary that takes a very dark turn, but worth watching. It's about, I think it's a 4-episode miniseries, so definitely something to watch. But be ready. It gets pretty heavy.
Okay, we're all fans of the documentary. What's the most horrifying documentary that you guys watched? Like normal documentary, but then just took a turn for the absolute worst.
Do you have one in mind?
I do. Yeah, Finding
Okay.
Neverland.
But we knew. But see, I don't see that as necessarily taking a turn. I read up a lot about that.
Yeah,
stuff
but I guess
before.
the detail they went
Yes.
into was rough.
Yeah.
Yeah, the account from the kids that were molested
Yeah.
is what really is haunting, and the fact that you have these people that their lives have been ruined by this, and you still have people out there defending Michael Jackson like he's like he's a hero.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is crazy. It's so weird. Yeah, because you do hear it. It's like I even though you kind of what he was accused of, to hear it from their mouths, it's so hard to like. It's crazy that he's still worshipped like he is.
Yeah,
it's almost shocking. But
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah.
For me, look, we watched a lot of documentaries on stuff that was knowingly terrible, like on war and things like travesties that we knew what we were getting into. So I'm not going to mention anything like that because look, we know the horrors of certain things. But I didn't realize I forgot the name of the documentary, but it was on those triplets that were really popular during the 1980s.
Yeah.
And
Three
through the
Identical
90s.
Strangers.
Yeah, and then what happened to them? And woo, that was dark. That went that went south pretty quick. So that was a pretty sad story.
Yeah,
of what happened to them.
Yeah, there's the like I remember that one. Although I don't remember it being like a gut punch. But it's like it's a great question. I got to think about it. I feel like I got to
I'm sure
look up a list of like documentaries that I've seen where you're you're hit by a gut punch like that. But yeah, no, definitely. This one's up there. Just where it go, because it gets to a very, very dark place. I think it starts, where it starts is like, okay, here's a guy, pretty toxic set, seems like a creep, and then it gets really, really bad for like an episode. So it's pretty rough, but recommend it if you do like documentaries and it just in a world like we were too old, like this is kind of like the Nickelodeon in the early 2000s, obviously like not something that we would have been watching, but having like stepkids that were kind of in that age range and my siblings at varying levels, I was aware of all those names and a lot of what was going on, so it's pretty crazy. But all right, so we don't have. It's funny. I don't have news, and I thought about this. I don't know that we talked about it. Going back to MMA, and documentaries. What maybe our favorite MMA documentary is a Smashing Machine, right? One of the early ones.
Oh yeah.
Do you guys know that The Rock is playing Mark Kerr in a biopic?
No, but I mean, he looks like him. So
you think?
I mean, relatively. I mean, look, same build, almost same sort of skin complexion, like same hair, the dark curly hair. Like not exactly, but you always. I mean, you're going to get actors are generally like the better looking versions of the main character. Yeah, that was
the Rock
tragedy.
is still in probably in Mark Kerr's shape now. But
yeah, he is. Yeah,
I mean, he's like he's north of 50. How is he? What part of Mark Kerr's life is he playing? Like that's the part I don't understand.
I don't know, but look, with makeup and and any digital touch ups, you could see a realm where he's
passing for a 25-year-old Mark Kerr destroying people in Japan like that.
Yeah, really I think so.
They could do that.
I think it close enough that, but look, as you said, it really depends on the it really depends on the way they go about it. So. Maybe you could do it where they like fog up the screen. I don't know, like make it look like it was in the
past. You want them to Crisco the lenses in order to pass Rock off his neck?
Pretty much.
Listen, I don't know. I've seen Rock recently because he's been showing up in WWE, and so that shows up in my timeline. He is starting to look his age a little bit.
Yeah.
Like he's getting a little long in the tooth. He was 20 forever, and now he's looking. Yeah,
he still looks
crossing
good.
the bend into 40.
He still looks good.
He's in incredible shape.
Yes,
he looks his age, and I can't believe that. Here's the weird thing. It's like, right, Mark Kerr at 40, 50 is not in incredible shape. No. So if Rock is playing like an older version of Mark Kerr, that doesn't work because he's not in that shape. And he's playing a younger version. So I'm curious to see what they're doing with this, or how they make it work. Because it's like he's got the body that can match, somebody that's that age, but he doesn't. Although he is doing some incredible work. Like I will follow. I've been kind of following what they've been doing with that storyline, and it's actually got me excited to watch WrestleMania, like the stuff that he's doing with Cody Rhodes, and they've actually been doing some great work there. So, but then I think after WrestleMania, at some point, maybe it's in the summer, at some point he will be filming the Smashing Machine.
So what I find strange about the whole thing is where's the demand to know about Mark Kerr? Like,
there is none.
Yeah.
It's like, who makes this?
I think, so, I'm sure somebody, obviously he's an MMA, he's very much connected with MMA, whether he's a big fan or not, right? Like at this point, even like the WWE and UFC are, under the same umbrella at this point. I think it's more like him trying to win awards, like, or trying to show his acting chops. I think that's what this is. There's no demand for the Mark Kerr biopic, but I'm sure, but his story is a crazy story. Like I said,
Yeah.
we watched, I think, it's a great documentary about the Spanish Machine was a great documentary about him in the midst of his career. So, it's a sad story, and it's kind of a cautionary tale. So I'm sure somebody wrote a script or screenplay. It's a guy that's, again, adjacent to the WWE, and something that, like, he thinks he could do. So, but I think this is his shot at, like, because at the end of the day, like, The Rock is one of the biggest movie stars in the world.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at the other pro wrestlers, I think Batista has gotten accolades for his work, and he's actually
actor.
he's been picked for, like, he's been picked for roles because of his acting, not just because he's a monster. And he's very good at what he does. I don't know that he has, like, the greatest range in the world,
No,
but, like,
he's good at what he does.
anything you've seen Batista in, he's been really
you
good.
Accept it.
And then even
question.
like John Cena
Cena's
has been
good,
very good in his role.
he's good.
Again, not the greatest range in the world, but, like, I love him as Peacemaker. He's awesome in whatever he does. So I think it's The Rock. I think in a weird way, even though The Rock's the biggest movie star, he's kind of taken weirdly a back seat to, like, Cena and Batista.
Yeah.
And so I think this is his chance to, like, say, hey, look, I can act. I've got chops.
I read something that I don't remember where I saw it about the Rock playing Popeye. I think that would be makes sense. He would be perfect for that role, right? You see what I'm saying? Or is that too woke?
I would say, you could just see it. It's weird. I feel like The Rock just gets a pass for anything, though. Like, no one will call it woke, but no, actually, I could see Cena more as Popeye, because I would think it'd be more of a, I see
He's
him
too good looking for Popeye.
Now you throw a
necessarily.
prosthetic jaw on him.
I guess.
He'll be
Yeah,
fine.
yeah. Cena could be a good Popeye too.
Yeah, Cena. So I think Cena could be a good Popeye.
Yeah, he's lovable. Like, look, you want someone for Popeye that kids like, right? But kids like Cena, but they also like The Rock.
Kids love Cena. Kids love
Cena.
The Rock.
Yeah.
No, so I think I could see him as Popeye, but
In another year or two, he's going to have Popeye's haircut. It's going fast. Have you seen those pictures?
Yeah, he's holding on.
The back of his head is starting to look like the front of mine, unfortunately.
Yeah. All right. So let's get to our reviews. I was going to do another trailer, but we can save that for next week.
What was the trailer?
It was Penguin.
Oh, yeah, we can.
So yeah, we can save that.
Wait,
so,
they're making a movie based on a Batman villain? I'm shocked.
okay. Yeah, a show based on the Batman.
Oh, a show.
But yeah,
Better
so
yet.
they're doing
a whole show. All right.
Well, and then we have the Joker musical coming out.
Well, we're
Very
making
surprising.
a show
Very
based
surprising.
after a Batman villain that was based after a Robert De Niro character.
Yeah,
That was not the Penguin.
yeah. That well, I will say this. In various iterations of the Batman, whether it's been on TV, in video games, in comics, we've gotten a variety of different versions of that Penguin character. Because there's some, some where he's very comical, like the Danny DeVito version. There was the great Telltale Batman game. I don't know if you played that, but the version of the Riddler there, the Penguin there was totally different. Then you got, like, the version that in the animated series, and you have the version comics. So I think it's a character you kind of get various iterations of it. But you're right; it was very much like a Robert De Niro kind of.
Well, yeah, he was Al Capone from The Untouchables, is what he was.
Pretty much, yeah.
Has there ever been a legit, like, Robin, like,
Really, in the
good
comics.
Yeah, not in the movies.
We need a good Robin. He needs to be gay. It needs to be woke. He should definitely be some minority persuasion.
Well, you know that apparently like the Schumacher Batman, what's his name, was Marlon Wayans was supposed to be Robin, apparently.
Okay,
but
that's sometime down the road. You can be sure of it.
It's interesting. I don't think so. The Batman that we tend to get in the movies, which is generally a somewhat more kind of realistic take of a superhero.
Yeah.
I don't think Robin works with that type of Batman. Until
you make it work.
Like the Pattinson Batman. Like, I love that movie, and I don't see him working with the Robin. But the good thing with, I think, what they're trying to do with DC now is I think they can make other Batman movies with tell other stories. Because it would be good to see various versions of Robin, of which there are many. So We'll see.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think we've gotten like a real legit Robin on the big screen outside
And
of like the
it could
66
be like
Batman.
it could be a like it could be sort of like a dark comedy action sort of deal. It could be something like that. It could be slapstick. It could be, Cobra Kai style, something like that. Like there's all sorts of ways to go about it. It doesn't have to be, like with now, it's true with Batman now, sort of, and, Joker and everything, it's become dark, right?
Yeah.
It's become
Yeah.
synonymous with more like a dark idea, but it doesn't have to be.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't have to be. But I think that's the version that I think people want to see on the big screen.
Yeah.
So we end up getting that over and over. And I get it, but that's the thing, is that they can tell different stories.
Yeah.
So hopefully, we do get that, because there's so many stories to pick from. That I think it'd be interesting to see. I've never been a fan of Robin, so like I'm cool without it. Although, like, there are versions of the story with his son who becomes a version of Robin that I actually think would be pretty interesting. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. All right, so let's get to our first of two movie reviews today. It's like we cut the news so I could get to the movies shorter, and somehow we're 30 minutes in now. But all right, so first of the two reviews, we're going to start with Roadhouse. So Roadhouse is a remake of the 1989 movie starring Patrick Swayze, yet another reboot or remake. But this one stars Jake Gyllenhaal, and he's an ex-UFC fighter, so I like how they kind of updated it. Ex-UFC fighter named Dalton, who finds himself as a bouncer at a roadhouse. And he's there basically because a group of generic villains and Conor McGregor are trying to force the owner out. So this movie is a little... So before we get started, I'll ask both of you guys. I'll start with you, Cynic. Were you a fan of the original Roadhouse movie? And did you have any expectations of this coming into it?
Ryan, I'll have words with anybody who wasn't a fan of the original Roadhouse movie, because it was fantastic.
Yeah, hard not to like. It's like one of those movies that before you had everything that you could possibly want to watch at your fingertips. Like if you were scrolling, it was late and, you were having a snack or something, you were scrolling through TV. I always used to watch TV while we would eat. And it was on, you would say, oh, I'll watch this. I'll watch Roadhouse, and you would stay and you would, whatever part of the movie it cut in at, you would watch it to the end, and then that was it. And you would be satisfied with it. So to me, that's like Roadhouse. You'd always watch it whenever it was on, if you happen to be watching, live TV at that moment.
All right, so we'll go through this when we're reviewing this, since we've all seen it, and all have thoughts, I think. We'll go through our review process. So basically, reviews, we got 5 categories: story, performance, the feels, internal logic and consistency, and audiovisual. So we'll kind of talk about each one individually. Some may have more to talk about than others, and then we'll kind of give our overall review. So first part, Justin, the story is fairly similar with some changes to the original, but what are your thoughts overall on the story, on the writing, pacing, things like that? What are your thoughts? I know you have some.
I thought that well, first off, I just thought that the movie should be renamed Shithouse. So it was the writing was the worst part of all of it. It was just all over the place, and without the creation of one interesting character. Actually, with like half of an interesting character, and we'll get there, and not for the right reasons too. You never, like, they hint that that Dalton is aloof and becomes actually like Jack Reacher, traveling around with no real identity or no real goal, because maybe he killed or injured his close friend in an MMA bout where the ref wasn't able to stop him for the only time in history where that's well, I guess it has happened in other events, but so like basically he goes on, spoiler alert.
Yeah, probably should have said that in the beginning.
you could put up a little banner that says spoiler, right? Not that it really has much to do with the plot, and he's depressed, or he's carrying it with him, but it doesn't really go into like why he's out there. And they just says, oh, he throws a screw and he's loose, but he doesn't become he's like they make him sound like, oh, if you push him too far, he becomes crazy. But that's not really true. They never really push him too far, and he never really becomes crazy. He just does what he's supposed to do, which is to beat up the beat up the bad guys. The villains were even worse, right? Like like the real bad guy is off screen. You don't even know who he is, right? And his son, is taking over, who's really poorly written. You have no insight into his personality besides that he's a spoiled brat who's, criminal father, basically gave him everything, and he's terrible, and none of his real motivations. It's weak. um there's a bunch of goons, which fine, their goons are goons. And then you have Conor McGregor's character, who he's this psychopath, um, but we don't know anything about him besides he's just a psychopath. He's just a hired guy who happens to be a psychopath. We don't know how he gets mixed up with with the main criminal who you never even hear about, who actually sounds interesting. So, and then look, everything is just, I mean, so many consistency problems, and they tried to like write issues, why the cops don't get involved, to try to cover the fact that, every night is like, World War III in a bar, and it's just painful to get through. I think it was just the writing was just it was one of those, where is the adult in the room that says, what the hell is going on? It seems like it was written by some kid in high school trying to wanted a college admission to a film school. Like, it's just
so. Cynic, your thoughts on the story?
Justin, you joyless slut.
I guess there were some good parts. We'll get to the good parts with the writing.
The movie was fun. Is it Citizen Kane? No, it's not. Yeah. I mean, some of the motivations and goals of the characters could have been a little more formulated before they threw it out there. But remember that we're watching a direct to Amazon movie, which is like a direct to video movie for people our age. It didn't hit the theaters, and there's a reason it didn't hit the theaters. But for what it was a lot of fucking fun. And go ahead.
Yeah, no,
go ahead.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree with you. Like, I feel like you got something like this. You're kind of grading on a curve a little bit. Like, it was dumb fun, and I think I went into it with low expectations.
Oh yeah.
I think.
I had low expectations.
I don't think you're not wrong about the writing and about the characterizations and about the motivations and all that stuff. I think I just didn't expect it to give me any of that anyway. So I think, it's kind of dumb. The writing is pretty bad, but fun bad. It has some humor. But what's funny
the humor
to me,
was
and
so
we'll talk
annoying.
about it a little more when we get to so I feel like they did Conor McGregor a disservice, because, and maybe we'll segue into a little bit performances now, because I do want to mention that. And it connects to the writing and the performance. So I thought Conor McGregor is great. Like, he is clearly having the time of his life. Yeah. He's fully in it, right? Like, it's also probably the only role that Conor McGregor can play, right? But it's like he's in the zone, right? This is his role. But they gave him so many cringeworthy lines.
Yeah, I know.
That it was like the writing was, they were trying to do everything they could to like make him terrible, but he's got such charisma, and he kind of committed so much to the lines that I was like, all right, cool, I'm buying it. But there were several times I'm like, ooh, why'd they write that line for him? Because it was
time when they're in a life and death struggle, and they're like joking about like, it's just
but
that's look, if it's an action comedy, that's okay. If it's a Jackie Chan movie, you expect it, but it wasn't. It kind of was, and then they just pulled it out on occasion.
Yeah, no, I mean, I feel like there was kind of that dumb humor throughout. Like, I a little bit disagree, but I think otherwise, like, other than Conor McGregor's performance, I thought Jake Gyllenhaal was fine. He's fine. He's a good actor. I think he played that role of he plays the role of like the the fighter, his kind of sarcasm, and I liked how when he was kind of asking about do you have medical insurance, and kind of the way he was approaching conflict was entertaining. So I did enjoy that. But other than those two, everybody else was pretty much just generic villain, generic love interest.
I really think that was by design. If you take Conor McGregor and put him in any movie of this type of genre, it instantly makes it better. And I don't know, Ryan, if you've heard Connor talk in the last 5 years, he's not on top of his game anymore. The dialogue they gave him is shit that he would probably say in a tweet.
Could be.
He's really fallen off as far as being an edgy, on top of things guy.
Yeah.
But he did really save this movie in several ways, because he was the most interesting person on screen every time he was on screen.
Exactly. Yeah. Tell me more. Like so your thoughts on any of the other performances, or was it all kind of?
Well, I just kind of felt like Jake Gyllenhaal was a little too jokey.
Yeah.
And I get what you were saying in the beginning, Justin, but I think it was the levels of violence that they were talking about. Like him, basically ripping people's arms off was what he was trying to avoid, where in the beginning he was literally just slapping people in the face and making them look silly in the beginning of the movie. So I think him being pushed was the level of aggression in which he took out on his adversaries, that he could go further, he could break your neck, but he'll just slap you around and drive you to the hospital afterwards. So I kind of get that, but he was really a mic and a stage away from being a stand-up comedian in that movie, and I just didn't think it was all the way necessary. Yeah. Every good action hero needs a few quips, but it felt like every time he threw a punch, he had a one-liner. And by the way, that fight sequence made Eve Levine look like shit, because that's who the referee was that let Jake Gyllenhaal's character beat that other guy to death. So if this is your reaction time in real life, you need to go sit down for a little while.
Surprised that it wasn't Herb Dean that they didn't get that.
Oh, I don't think Herb Dean would even being in the movie, Herb Dean would still broke that fight up before there was a fatal blow.
Yeah. Well, the other thing I would say with Jake Gyllenhaal's performance, one thing I didn't love is, we brought it up, right? Like, he's somebody who's got this kind of quiet rage, that he's obviously trying to bottle up this rage, and that I never got. I never got that feeling that his battle was internal, that the entire movie, like, he's fighting not to allow that demon to come out. I never quite felt that. And I kind of, again, I don't know that that we need that kind of performance, but he is a good enough actor to do that, and so I don't know that he quite did it. And I'd say there's one other thing I would say that
I don't think he was given the material to do that.
Yeah, but there's one other thing that did throw me off a little bit, is just there was some kind of tonal shift. So the movie is very jokey early on.
It's true,
and then people start getting murdered out of nowhere, and that kind of shift was also, and that's part of it. Okay, so that's part of the performance, right? Because I didn't buy that he had this quiet rage that he was bottling, and just he's fighting as much as he's fighting other people, he's fighting himself to hold it in. When he does just outright murder somebody, like, that just was a shock, because I wasn't like that was the logical consequence to provoking him, and so I think that was all threw me off a little bit. But again, like, we're asking for, we're judging, on a different, we got to judge it on a curve, I guess, with a movie like this.
Yeah, in the movie, he's fighting to stay away from a 5, and he jumps to a 10, and that doesn't bother him, and he goes right back to joking.
Yeah, exactly.
And by the way, R.I.P. Easy Reyes, because that was a horrible way to go.
Yeah, exactly. So next up is the feels. So, like, obviously there's not a lot of the drama in this.
It gave me the feels.
Well, so obviously with the feels, it's like, it could be humor, it could be funny, it could be, was there major tension? Was it sad? Whatever it is. Did your emotions jump at all watching this?
Yeah,
movie?
it did.
Yeah.
I could tell you that,
making it wanted to be over.
In my 40 some odd years of life, almost 50, I could have made it the rest of my life without a 3-minute long shot of Conor McGregor's ass like it's Dunkirk. Why did we not pull away from that after like 10 seconds of shock value? And why do I feel like I can now pick Conor's ass out of a fucking lineup?
Well, he's got a very distinct walk. But yeah,
he's got a very distinct ass too. It's crazy that we had to stare at that for as long as. Yeah. I almost grabbed the remote and started fast forwarding. Like, how
did
long
they
is
write?
This?
I wonder, like, when they were writing it, was that part always written for Conor McGregor?
Yes,
or was
it? No, I think it absolutely was written for Conor.
It was.
Okay, all right. So then that makes sense.
Another feel is annoyingness. It's like, come on, like, Conor walks out of the hospital after being stabbed 50 times. It's like, it's like, look, I'm okay with things being ridiculous when it comes to.
You're okay with the boat, the boat landing on the roof of the bar.
Yeah, I'm okay.
And everybody surviving.
Yeah,
but not...
like, because it's ridiculous. But when you have something like that, it's like, come on. It's like, it's just, I don't know. It's like, well, like it's like they're going to do a Roadhouse sequel where he becomes like Michael Myers or something like that. Like, is that? I guess that's like some weird like combination. That
He
Well,
might,
if
it
it
might
does
be.
enough ratings, I'm sure we'll see another one.
Yeah,
We may
exactly.
not see Jake Gyllenhaal because I'm sure that ship has sailed for him. But yeah, I'm sure that we'll see that. That's what they were doing. They were setting it up.
Yeah,
So
of
yeah,
course.
he's
I
going.
was just
That
like,
same
oh,
villain's going
come
to show up in
on.
another movie.
All right. Well, so the next up, which we've all touched on, is the internal logic and consistency. So I will agree. I think the movie was a bit all over the place. Although, like, to be fair, I don't. I mean, I think the thing that annoyed me the most was kind of with the police. That you have the situation
so
where there's kind of
annoying.
corrupt police, but they're kind of conveniently corrupt. And then they follow the rules when it's convenient. And that was a little weird to me. So it was kind of a bit of like, they're writing yourself into a corner and then just, yada yadaing your way out. But any other major logical issues that you that you want to call out in the movie, Justin or Cynic?
Yeah.
Good, Justin.
Yeah, the whole movie was
Yeah.
was lacking of logical consistency. The whole thing didn't make sense. Like, why would he turn down why would he turn down? He turns down the job in the first place, and then like the second he's like, oh shit, I need money, I'm gonna get the job. Like, it's like, whoa, he really put up a fight. It's like, why would he turn it down? He's fighting for money, like, and then it's like, oh no, we're gonna pay you a lot of money to fight. Oh no, but I don't want that job. It's like from the very beginning, it didn't make any sense, and then it just and.
Did either of you guys start doing forensic accounting for that bar? That how they were able to pay $5,000 a week?
I was
Like,
wondering
there's
that
no
too.
way.
I was like, I thought the same thing too. I was like, oh, okay, so how the hell is this place, in the Keys? I guess they make good money, but like they're making that good money, and they also make enough to like hire these professional bands to play, and I guess maybe they're playing for free. We'll talk about that later as well. Another thing that annoyed me, but
Okay.
Nobody gets to finish a set. Like they get one song
Yeah,
into the
that's
set,
true.
it's done.
Yeah. Yeah. And well, the other thing that bugged me, logic wise, is so it's in Florida. Everybody's got a gun in Florida. Yet the gangsters don't have guns initially, but then later they kind of have guns, but he easily so that was the other thing that's weird, is like, why weren't they just completely armed in every situation? Like, why are you going after, like, once
they tried to make one thing. Oh, we can't go shooting it up because the police. Because the corrupt police that are working with you.
Yeah.
It's like, but you just can't do it this time. I know. It's just
it was a little annoying. Okay, so and then the last category, audiovisual. So in this case, Justin or Cynic, I'll start with you. What were your thoughts on the fight scenes? How'd you like how they did? I thought they took some interesting artistic kind of choices on the scenes. What were your thoughts on the?
They really did. I mean, they hit all the notes: the slow motion, the excessive violence. I thought the fight scenes were the best part of the movie. Unbelievable as such. Like Justin had said in the end, with Connor being stabbed multiple times, like he was fighting Wolverine. But then he's fine. But yeah, I thought. I mean, that's basically what the vehicle was of the movie. We needed to get to the fight scenes, and I thought the fight scenes are the one thing that did pay off.
Mm-hmm.
So Justin, as an MMA fan, does Jake Gyllenhaal throw a good punch?
Yeah, it was the fight scenes were good. That was the best part. And it was obviously a lot of MMA influence, and also a little kind of like Krav Maga, like sort of that stuff too. It's like the modern martial arts, which sort of combines MMA styles with sort of military combatives, not super fancy like old school kung fu stuff. So yeah, the fighting was good. It was well choreographed, and it was exciting. So that was the best part. I think no one would have complaints about that. Clearly, was the bread and butter of the movie, and that part did deliver. But you mentioned interesting that the category is audio visual, right?
Yeah.
But I think for this you need to separate the two categories, because the audio, I did not like the music selection. And I saw what they were going for, because the original Roadhouse had the band playing and was playing blues. I think it was the same band that played in the original. It was a house band, which was kind of a cooler concept. So what they went with this, I don't know. I should look into it. I think they tried to bring in real bands that were like, from all over. They tried to bring some group from New Orleans and this and that, but I didn't really think that the music selections really were very good. Like I don't think they fit the and I know they try to incorporate, some of the band scenes in. They had a cage in front of them, which is kind of funny. But I didn't like the music supervision. I didn't think they chose good songs that were based, and I thought the bands were good themselves, but I didn't think they really fit in with it. I saw what they were going for, where they tried to have this, these live bands playing while these rumbles were going on, and that sort of thing that they did in the original movie. I just didn't think it worked well. I didn't like the music that they chose. There might have been one or two good songs I think that fit, but I didn't love the overall music supervision of it. They think it's I like the model. Like if you ever saw the show Treme, where they would show like these extended pics of the live artists, but those were legit. Really, they did their research and really chose some of the best of New Orleans music for that show. And this, I know they brought in different. It was weird. Like once again, it was sort of like, where's the adult in the room that really knows what's going on? I don't think that the music was very well curated.
Yeah,
personally.
How about you, Cynic? Any thoughts on the music?
It was terrible.
Terrible. Okay.
It was terrible all the way through. It, I heard them doing a couple weak covers, but
yeah,
that's not
the weird
type
Enter
of band
Sandman cover too, somewhere in there.
Yeah, it's not the type of bands that you want playing at a place like that. That's for tourists. When you're having a rumble, you want a harder edged band. So it just didn't fit into the whole thing.
Yeah. Weird. It didn't bother me all that much. The music, for whatever reason, it was like I was kind of like indifferent. Like it had no real.
Well, indifference is not a good thing.
Yeah,
right?
that's fair. That's fair, right? Yeah.
It's the opposite of love, Ryan.
Yeah, yeah. But as far as the visual part, I thought the fights were good. They were, I like how they choreographed it. It's always important, like if you're doing a fight heavy kind of show, that I want to see what's going on and understand the fights. And I like that they really did a good job of choreographing it and also shooting it so that it's not like a million cuts in between. And it was realistic enough, that it never took me out of it while, when they were fighting and not, doing something crazy, but also like, fancy enough that it was gonna, it was an entertaining and pretty brutal at points. Like there's some parts where I just had to turn my head away because I was like, oh, I don't need to see that person's, hand split in half or whatever it was. But otherwise, it was that part was fine and probably the best part of the movie. So I'll start with you, Justin. I think we know your opinion, so try to keep it short, but let me give you your final thoughts and rating out of 10 for the movie.
My final thoughts is that it should be called Shithouse, and my rating is a 1. Wait, can it be less than 1?
That's pretty bad.
Okay.
All right.
Fine. 1.5. 1.5.
Wow. All right.
The fight scenes were good enough to give it that 0.5.
Wow. Okay. Cynic, your final thoughts and rating.
Listen, Amazon Prime is free. I mean, it comes with the delivery, which really what I spend the money for is to get things delivered to my house, sometimes within a day for free. So the fact that they're throwing in any kind of entertainment, and most of the time the stuff on Amazon is very good. I mean, it killed 2 hours on a Friday night. My wife absolutely loved it. I enjoyed what I saw because I went in there with zero expectations. It's kind of like a date where you expect her to have a mustache and a beard, and for her to high five you after everything you say, and for her to have BO and maybe beer breath, and she turns out to be an okay person. So I would give it like a 6.5. I mean, it was what it was advertised to be.
Yeah. I'm right there with you. I think 6.5 is like a perfect score for it. I think that's even the score it has on IMDb. Like, it's not Citizen Kane. It's not trying to be. It's a fun, dumb movie. It's pretty quick. It's not overly long. It doesn't overstay its welcome. It's got some good action. A couple funny moments. A lot of moments that are kind of cringeworthy. Conor McGregor hamming it up. Jake Gyllenhaal. Again, he's this kind of like A-list actor who probably could have done like a little bit better, for a character that's supposed to have this kind of darkness in him. But beyond that, it's a fun, dumb movie. And if you've got time and you want to watch something that you don't have to think too much about, it's got some cool action scenes. Totally worth it. Again, not the greatest movie in the world, but like a perfect like 6.5, easy watch.
So we average our scores.
So you're telling me that a spoiled kid that gets his money from his father and becomes a corrupt real estate developer is the villain of the story? How unlikely is that?
That's a really good point.
Yeah, I know. I just wish he could. I just wish like he could have been more villain. I didn't really buy him as a villain. He was just like the annoying kid in the way, which there wasn't enough of that. But all right, we could go on and on.
My favorite part of that movie, though, is when Connor's speeding up on the boat and the villain looks out in the distance and he goes, "Oh, this fucking psychopath again." I laughed my balls off.
That was pretty funny. It was just kind of like his character just was like this, it was like just this like force of nature that existed outside of everything once he was on the screen. So
he was like Cable Guy. He just kept showing up.
Yeah. No, it's like he was having a good time. So watch it just for Conor McGregor being just weird. But yeah. I mean, like if we average our scores, I think it'll be like a 4. But I think Justin's just. I think you had, for whatever reason, you had some high expectations of this movie.
Well, look, it was called Roadhouse.
He's like, I tuned into this thinking it was Shawshank Redemption.
Well, look, there are other versions of this movie that I like a lot more, like the Crank movies or something like that, which are just these high octane, sort of great one-liners, lots of fighting that are just paced better. And it's like, they don't focus too much on the character, but they do it just enough so that you're not annoyed by them. So that would that to me, that's like a better versions of this type of movie.
Well, let me ask him a question, all right. What would your score have been, Justin, if it wasn't named Roadhouse?
What did I give it? A 1.5?
Yeah. What if you take away the stain, which is Roadhouse? Sorry about that, Patrick Swayze. You take away the blight on its name, and we call it Shithouse, like you named it. What would you rate it?
Probably a 6.5.
Exactly. It's like I think that's. I
don't know. I wouldn't give it that much, but I don't know. I'd give it probably I'd probably give it like a 4 or something like that. But
your score would have went up because it's not being held to any standard at that point. It's just a movie.
But to be fair, you made a good observation. It is he's basically Jack Reacher, right? Like
it's true.
That's pretty much
too.
I mean, like. It's kind of funny. Like like if you took this entire story, this could be Jack Reacher.
It could be a Reacher.
100% could be a Jack Reacher novel. Like he just shows up because that's what he does. He shows up in a random town. He meets people. He helps. Somebody's in need. He helps them. He unravels some kind of criminal activity. He beats up a bunch of guys, kills a few, and then then there's a big action at the end. He saves the day, and then he's off. I mean, what
are the odds
crazy.
That this was actually a Reacher episode that they wrote, and they said, "Well, we can't use this, but how about this idea?"
It 100% feels like somebody wrote a Jack Reacher book or story and was like, well, I can't use the name Jack Reacher. What could I do? And like, I'm friends with the producers of whatever. Let's read Roadhouse. It is crazy actually that it like I'm not going to stop thinking about that. It's pretty much a Jack Reacher story. Yeah. Wow. All right. Well, great. I did never occurred to me. All right. Anyway. So our next review. So this one will be a little bit shorter because I saw the full season, so I'll kind of give my full season thoughts. But the 3-body problem. So I want to see if you guys are in for the long run or if one episode's enough for you. So basically the 3-body problem. So the double D's of Game of Thrones fame. I think for the first 6 seasons of Game of Thrones were could do no wrong, and then for the last 2, it was hit or miss. Some people liked it, some people didn't. Some people absolutely hate them and would never watch anything by them again. But I think this, but they did prove that they can adapt material onto TV and do a good job of it, obviously with Game of Thrones. And so this time they took another very popular series, the first novel of which is called The 3-Body Problem. And so I've read the 3 books in this series, and they're very, very dense books. It's kind of hard sci-fi, and it's a bit of a tough read. Also, it's translated from Chinese, so it's originally written by a Chinese author. It's translated, and it's a lot. Like you really have to pay attention to it, and there's a lot going on. And I think there's a lot of room potentially for it to get lost in exposition and the scienciness of it. where you really want to find a way to combine that science and narrative. So I'm interested to hear you guys' thoughts. So, Justin, I'll start with you. So after one episode, for you, how was this a story that's interesting enough and engaging enough for you to continue?
So this is exactly what I thought. They throw a lot at the first, for the first episode, like all the flashbacks to, communist revolution China, the scientists, then a little bit about the sort of like disgruntled intelligence guy who works there, officer, which he actually was a funny line. He's like, I fire up, which was a funny, I forgot how they said it. That was sort of a funny line. So yeah, there was a lot in there. And then they have their, the stuff with the video game or the virtual reality, which is sort of like I was worried it was a little bit too close to something Ryan and I have been writing, but it's not at all. So I'm not concerned about that. They throw a lot at you at first with these, and then, with everything going on and, and they, at the end, they finally hinted what they're getting at. They're making communication. Right. So, this is what I thought. This could be fantastic. It could be great if they find a way to correctly route all of these plot lines, or it could really fall apart. So if it's not done well. Okay. So that's just like, if I haven't, from someone, and I know that it's popular, so it seems like people are enjoying it, and people don't generally enjoy things that aren't good too often, or it doesn't last for too long, but people seem to be enjoying it. So it seems like they do a good job of sort of wielding, of putting together all the plot lines. Yeah. So I'm definitely intrigued, and I'm excited to move forward with it if they indeed are able to do it, because the premise and everything there seems everything is in place for it to be excellent. Now, I guess the question would be moving forward, whether they are able to execute everything properly.
So, Cynic, your thoughts so far on the story?
I thought the story was slow and overly complex. Yeah. I didn't have my phone in my hand on purpose because I kind of figured it was going that way right away. I have a feeling you're going to alienate probably 80% of your audience, that you're going to need a moderate to medium, higher IQ to understand the story. The characters were fairly unlikable. Because you just don't identify with a physicist. No. You can't identify with someone of a higher intelligence. I love the fact that they went with Benedict Wong, but it was a weird choice for that particular part. Like, seeing him be a detective, it was just jarring to me. Maybe he's too recognizable. Yeah. I absolutely. I love John Bradley in Game of Thrones, and I hope he works forever.
Yeah.
I hated his character. Absolutely. It was over the top, not funny.
Oh, yeah. It was too forced.
It was like, hey, let's make the most obnoxious guy in the room.
Yeah, people don't act like that in real life.
I mean, the stuff shot during the Chinese Revolution was beautiful. It was hard to watch. It was sad. It was probably some of the best parts of the show. But I have a feeling that this isn't going to catch on the way a Game of Thrones did, because the premise is just super fucking complicated. And I'll hang in for more than 2 or 3 episodes to see if I can. But if I've got to ask questions to my wife what I'm watching, usually I'm the one answering questions. But if I've got to, like, what was that about? Then like this countdown that they continuously went to, but somehow this lady knows why and how you can shut it off. There was a lot about it that I didn't like.
So I think it is very complicated. And that was my biggest fear when, with this show, is there's a lot of exposition to get through, and that can be just, you could do that well and you could do it poorly. Right. And I think and the show does it in some good, some bad. I think especially in that first episode, there are a lot of moments where you have two people talking to each other and it's not natural, because it just feels like, okay, they wouldn't really speak to each other like that if they were actually talking, but we have to make them talk to each other like that because it's we need to explain things to everybody. And so I get that. I do think, though, all things considered, because it is a very tough story to adapt, I do think that they did a good job of adapting it. Like there is a lot going on, and I think I would be interested to see where you guys are after like 3 or 4 episodes. You know, there is a lot of exposition, there's a lot of science, and a lot of like what's going on. And so by episode 3, we largely know where this story is going. And so I think and having watched the entire season, I think they do a good job of getting you the story and making it understandable. My actual issue, and then obviously I'm taking this a bit further than from where you guys are at this point, but basically so it is really, you know, I'm not going to spoil much, but you know, obviously it has to do with communicating with aliens, and there is a threat. And so once we find out what the threat is and how they are a threat, it's very cleverly done, and it's really interesting. So I would be interested to know when you guys get to that point where you figure out what the threat is, you know, what your thoughts are at that point, because it is very interesting and cleverly done. And once you get there, it builds to a huge moment. It's basically like this show's like red wedding moment. Like there's an episode, I think it's episode 5, that it builds to that is phenomenal, and the way it's executed is brilliant. And again, they nail that moment. What the problem with the show is that it builds to this huge climax in episode 5, and then we still have 3 more episodes, and it kind of just drags. And so what ends up happening is you build to this big moment in episode 5 that I encourage you to, you know, get to if you're okay at this point. And then you get 3 episodes of setting up the next season. And I think that's the bigger problem for me as far as how the story was put together, is that it is really good until you know, one point. And then there's a makeshift story that does not really live up to, you know, whatever expectations you might have. And I think the other issue, again, I'd be interested in hearing when you guys get to it, is when it does get to the like when it does hit its wait, where completely lost my so when you do find out what the threat is, it almost kills a sense of urgency. And there's a very specific kind of analogy I have, which is basically how, I won't get too detailed, but how we as a society respond to threats. And I'm not encouraged. So the show gives us a sense of urgency that I don't think would actually exist. And so I think that's another issue, is that there is not a sense of urgency because you know what the threat is. And because the threat is vaguely there, you know, I'm just not sure that the reaction would be what I think they want you to feel at that point.
The problem we've reached is in a society, Ryan, that even if there was a threat tomorrow, say there was an external invasion, people would just point fingers at each other anyway.
Exactly.
They wouldn't pick up guns and go defend the country. They'd be like, "Oh, it's this guy's problem," or "Oh, Biden did that," or you know, that's the big issue. Like, if aliens showed up tomorrow, we would find a way to politicize it.
Yeah,
and we just wouldn't do anything about it. There would be no Independence Day. It would be, don't cut off my DirecTV.
Yeah. If COVID's taught me anything, it's that. You know, we're not coming together for the alien invasion.
No, we really are. One thing that I did see that I kind of made me feel a little weird about was the people approaching them in the bar and the way that they treated them because they were scientists and so far above karaoke. And I almost felt like that was their way of speaking to the rest of the people that didn't get the show. Like, you know, we're above you. We're smarter than you are. We're tackling the world's complex problems, and you're pissing your life away in a bar.
It's interesting. I don't know that I quite got that. I felt it more of the writers just kind of being quote unquote woke. You know, if you want to say that. You know, more like, hey, we're female scientists and they're treating us poorly, or they treat us, you know, like we're not smarter than everybody else. And I almost felt like it was almost like shoehorning in that where wasn't necessary, right? Like, they're scientists, let them be, you know, let them talk science. We don't need them to then say like we're better than everybody else. So that was like a step further than we needed. But just
dialogue was weird.
Yeah. No, what were your thoughts on the performances so far? Like, so I know Cynic. So you mentioned like nobody being super engaging. Do you have that same feeling, Justin?
Yeah. I don't. Yeah, the characters are a little underdeveloped at this point. I don't like how you pronounce her name, Isa Gonzalez. Like, I have a major problem with her character. She's too good looking. Like, Like, no one is that gifted in life. You don't get to be that good looking and that brilliant. That person does not exist. Not even shouldn't exist in a movie. It's like, it's hard just like, it's just hard just not to stare at her when she's on screen and not pay attention to anything else. Like, so I had to rant off about that.
Did you run into that same issue, Cynic?
Not really, but I just didn't think she fit the part of a female
It
scientist.
was weird.
I think the performance did not. I didn't buy the
was,
performance.
I didn't buy the performance.
Yeah.
And what was the? I forgot the name of the actor who was obnoxious. It's like, no, people don't act like that at out at dinner, and it's like you're like the very first thing you're going to throw is throw everyone's problems and start making fun of. It was just the acting, the performances were weird. I liked what was the name of the I like the scenes in as Cynic mentioned, the scenes in Revolution China were the best scenes and the best acted scenes, I believe.
By far.
That was there was a much more emotional connection to the characters and what they were going through in the modern time. They just seem like these brilliant people, good-looking people, that have this, great opportunity, that are just troubled because they're troubled, and they're insufferable in some way, all of them. And it just, but I'm willing to give it the okay, right? If all the plot and the science all comes together and all these threads make sense, then I'm saying, okay, I can forgive all that, the sort of, fake conversation and all the exposition if it comes together. There have been other shows that are like that, where at first they just like have to unload everything to set up the show. I'm willing to give it the pass for episode 1 if it continues. But it's so funny that you said that, because I was thinking about the sort of petering off after a while. I said this show could really be great, but it also could be, I was really thinking that it could be good for a time, and then afterwards just sort of like, okay, I've had enough of this. It's not it's not going anywhere further. I just got that feeling that it could be one of those shows.
That's an issue of the book, or, of how it is, and I think it was a tough nut to crack. I guess I think there's a world where they ended at episode 5. Like, you could have almost made this season like a shorter season because of where it is. It's tricky because a lot of it is setting up the next 2 seasons, and so it's still good. But they try to manufacture like a big climactic scene that doesn't quite work, because it's like if you. Like, I guess the analogy I'll use for it no, I don't want to, because then I would, I'll give away what's going to happen. So, I'll keep it at that. It's just like, it builds to something that is, well, no, I do that. Like, let's say, you have a crush on, Elsa Gonzalez. What was her name?
I think Isa.
Whatever like, you have a crush, you're going to meet her, and you're like, you know what? I'm going to shoot my shot. I'm going to ask her out, right? Regardless of whether she goes out with you or not, it is a long shot. And it's not going to be the climactic moment in your life, because it's probably not going to happen, right? So that like, that's the level of what we're expecting, is like something that's a huge long shot that in the greater scheme of things isn't really going to make a difference, no matter what, whether it works or not. It's not going to make a huge difference, and that's what we're left with those last couple episodes like building towards. And so that was the thing. It's just kind of anticlimactic, and again, like the threat itself is just not the biggest threat in the world. So it's like that. I think that was the issue. But I was going to say with the performances. Hold on one second. Sorry, I've got 2 dogs. 2 dogs trying to come in. Okay,
What's going on there, Michael Vick?
Yeah. So
they duking it out. You better break it up.
With the performances, I think you both make a good point. I think so. You have the main cast, right, of the Oxford 5, and it kind of felt like a CW show, right? Like, everybody's a little they all look kind of like like they're all models. They're all kind of like I don't quite a couple of them are pretty good performances, but I don't quite buy everything as much as like you would. And then you've got like Benedict Wong, and you've got Jonathan Pryce, and I don't know if you've gotten yet to like Liam Cunningham, and the woman that plays the older version of the woman that's in the in the camp. I think I've got it here, Rosalind Chow. So
Yeah, she's a
or
great
is it Rosalind or Rosalind or one of the other, but they're all phenomenal, but these are all like fantastic actors. So it's
Yeah.
like, I almost wish that they were the focus of the show
Yeah.
and not the kind of secondary characters, because
CW5,
they're acting circles
Yeah.
around, to me, the main cast, and this doesn't really change. Like, I think that the main cast, they're fine. There's nobody that's bad.
The
And
writing
I do
also
think
isn't
that some
great
of
for
them
the
get-
cast. Like, it's not only their acting, like they're given terrible dialogue.
Yeah, no, so it's not
Well, they're
that,
giving physics dialogue.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
So yeah, and that's the thing. So it's like, it's not really like, it's not as like, it's almost like you get these fantastic performances by the secondary characters, and then the main characters, it's not as good. Although I didn't run into the same issue. I like Jonathan Bradley. I thought he's great in it. I didn't think he was that weird. Although if you don't like him,
he's not weird. He's obnoxious. And
Yeah,
I'm not a huge fan of obnoxious people.
I do think there's also like
no
a little
reason
bit of
to.
Yeah.
there's kind of shoehorned in like a love story that we didn't need, I think. And then like there's a whole kind of somebody gets sick that like it's there for a reason, but they spend too much time on it. So there's a lot of filler in the show, I think, that could have been cut. But I still think overall, like it's solidly done. Once you get through those first couple episodes where it's a lot of exposition and like, okay, what's going on, and trying to figure things out. So I guess I wanted to ask you guys now about the audio. So again, it's audiovisual. We'll go to that, even though we're not really going through all the categories like as we do with the other review. But on the visual side, do you anything stand out for you, good or bad? Like, did you like the VR scenes? Did they work for you? Did they not?
I didn't think the VR scenes were quite necessary. I just didn't see how. I'm sure they're going to fit into the story later, but I didn't see where we need this in the story. Like, you could tell the story without doing this.
It has a place. It's necessary. Sure. I'm mixed. I think when you get later on, it's shot interestingly. Some good, some bad. Some is kind of really bad CGI. I do love the design of that helmet. It looks really cool. Like, I'd love to have something like that. But
if it was an X-Men movie, I would agree with you. It just comes out of nowhere, and it's out of place to what we're doing.
Yeah, you'll see. It makes sense. And then the music is by Ramin Djawadi, or I should know, I forget to pronounce his name, but who does of Game of Thrones fame. Yeah. And what I found interesting is there's a lot of familiarity. You get a lot of the piano that you get in Game of Thrones. But I feel like it's a step below Westworld and Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Like, those are two of the best like TV soundtracks ever. And this is good, but it's not quite there, but it still has the element. So you kind of feel it there. I don't know if you guys feel the same way, Justin.
Yeah, I thought it was nice. Nothing bothered me. It was. I don't think that it was the point, because in Westworld, for instance, the sound and the music played a big role in it, right? Because they also paid a lot for it, because they licensed old songs and did like famous songs, and did like I remember that one episode where they did of that really weird version of Black Hole Sun.
Oh, that was amazing.
Right, so that was cool.
So
I knew you liked that one.
Yeah. Well, they did some amazing stuff with a lot. They took all kinds of songs and
a lot of cool songs, and it was it played a bigger stylistic role. And this, it's just sort of an undercurrent just to pad and support what's going on, which I'm totally fine with. That's great, and that's how it should be most of the time. The visuals look great. Once again, of course, going back to the Communist Revolution, those were the best visuals. The VR was fine. I don't mind it. It's like, look, they love incorporating this type of stuff, so I didn't mind it. It was technically well done, so I don't have any real issues with any of that stuff. So it all production quality is meant to support the performances and the writing, and for me, it does that. So it's all going to determine where everything goes. Yeah.
All right. Well, so Cynic, I'll start with you. Final thoughts, and then will you continue watching the show?
Ryan, based off of what you've said, it gives me less.
I know. Now I don't want to watch it.
Oh, man.
Enthusiasm and drive to watch the rest of this, because the Oxford Five, I believe you called them.
Yeah.
I wouldn't care less if they all died in a tragic Golden Corral buffet accident. Like I just wouldn't. I didn't like any of them. I wasn't rooting for any of them. The fact that one of them has the countdown and could potentially either pass away or not be on the show anymore kind of excited me a little bit. I don't know. I mean, I think I will just for my own self to see if I can kind of wrap my mind around the concept and keep up with it, because I do like to challenge myself. I felt the same way about Westworld at points. I loved the show, but it was a real hard follow. Yeah. And sometimes you don't watch TV for that. Like I love when things make me think. I don't like when things make me toil. And that's what I felt like I was doing during that episode, was just toiling the whole time, like trying to catch up. And that's not an enjoyable TV experience for me.
Justin.
Yeah, I'm of the same belief. I think I liked it a little bit more than Cynic did because I saw the potential in the plot lines. So for me, I'm going to watch it. And you gave the non-spoiler spoiler. It's like, well, I'm not going to tell you the plot, but I'm going to tell you that it's not as good. So
it climaxes way too early, which none of us know anything about.
So it's like, but look, I'll give it look. There obviously people have different views and opinions, so maybe I'll like it. Maybe I'll like it more after that. After the after the climax. Yeah. So maybe I won't mind it as much.
I identify with you more than you know, my friend.
So I'm the only
when it's winding down. But I'll keep watching it.
Yeah, so you'll keep watching it.
Yeah.
All right. So I'll give my quick little review. So I mean I've said enough, I think. But I do think so. Like this is it's a show that's very high. It's like a high. This is very much like the high concept show, and a high concept idea. And I think a lot of the reviews when you look at the books is the same. It's like the prose isn't amazing again, but it's translated, so I have no idea. Some of the dialogue and the characterizations are kind of one note. But it's a really interesting idea. And I think in that way, once you get past episode 2, you understand what's going on for the most part. So it's like the crazy, like sciencey part of it to a large extent. Like after you get to episode 2, you understand what the story is, what's going on, and you can go with it. Like I said, I think I think it does struggle in that there's no character that you really fall in love with, especially not like the main cast. Again, the people that I really enjoy are not in it nearly as much. And so that does become a little bit of an issue, is that there's nobody to really root for. You
mean the older established actors that can actually act? That can those people?
Yeah. So it's like the other cast, it's like the problem is you don't care if any of them die, which a couple of them do, but like you don't really care. Spoiler. And I think that I didn't say which ones, but I think that's a big part of the problem, is that it's part the performances, I think part the writing, and maybe the writing more than the performances, that you just don't care about them as much as you do about the other characters. Like again, there's a tertiary character that dies. When they die, you're like, oh, that really sucks. And in fact, a couple of times when tertiary characters go, again, this is kind of Game of Thrones like, where they're not afraid to chop some heads off. I felt more for those characters than I do for the main cast, and I think that is a problem. That being said, if you're okay with it initially, I love the concept. I think the story is really interesting. I'm a sucker for hard sci-fi, and I think they do a very good job with it. There's not a lot of major logical holes in it. There's a couple things here and there, but otherwise, like it flows well. I think the pacing is good. Again, up until episode 5, you do really get this situation that it does build to this one thing. And it's phenomenal. Like if you get to that point, like you can almost just shut it off there. Like get to that episode, you'll know the moment when it happens, and then you can just turn it off because nothing else is going to happen at that point. But I do think it struggles at the end. I am excited about the next 2 seasons, although I don't know how they're going to do it visually, because though it goes some crazy places, and I really have no idea how they're going to visually make those next 2 seasons work. But it'll be interesting. I'll keep watching the show, and I think my overall rating, I give it a solid 7.5. I think it's, it's not perfect. It has its issues. But I think it is a solid adaptation of something that is very hard to adapt. Mm-hmm. And so solid 7.5, teetering on 8 if we just got some better performances, but I recommend it, especially if you're a sci-fi fan. It works. If you're a fan if you read the books and liked it, I think it's a faithful adaptation with there's another whole other issue in that, like, all the characters are new. Not all, but most of the main characters are all not in the books, but that's a whole other story. But I think it otherwise is a faithful adaptation. It does a good job. It's a good story. And, again, if you don't love the main cast, you will love all the secondary characters because they're really good. But yeah, hopefully I brought you back to maybe continue to watch it, but we'll see. So anyway, I think that is it. Again, thank you guys for being on the show. And as usual, all of our stuff is at portableholepublishing.com. We're on all of our social media is at portable_hole. So until next time, Justin.
Watch out for the hole.